Hello and welcome to EMS Research with Professor Bram, where we talk about the research-related issues that matter to those who work in emergency medical services. Today, we'll be talking about EMS research and interviewing the new physician medical director for the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. Welcome to the EMS Research Vlog and Podcast from the studio here in Houston, Texas. I'm your host, Bram Duffy. I'm a full-time paramedic on the street, like many of you. I also have an appointment as a research fellow with the Institute for Social Innovation at Fielding Graduate University, and I'm an assistant professor of communication at Kennesaw State University. I actually have a research study open now for first responders, so if you don't mind being interviewed by me, then go to my website and check it out, www.professorbram.com. It's professorbram.com. You just click on the current research tab to apply. The other thing to share before we get started, I have written 2 different books on communication. And the most recent book was just released called Hypnotic Communication in Emergency Medical Settings for Life-Saving and Therapeutic Outcomes. You can find a link to the book below. Also, for sure, hang out to the end and I'll tell you more about it. So with us today, we have Sarah Fabiano, Dr. Sarah Fabiano. She is a distinguished figure in the field of emergency medicine, currently serving as the clinical assistant professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Prista Health Upstate University of South Carolina School of Medicine, Greenville. There's a lot of stuff to say in that one sentence. Throughout her career, Dr. Fabiano has taken on pivotal roles that have significantly impacted the landscape of EMS. And her expertise and leadership have been instrumental in her tenure as medical director for a real diverse array of services. So like air and ground transport, private EMS, pretty cool wildfire response, and then college and stadium-based emergency services. So in addition to her comprehensive responsibilities, she's the medical control physician for the Clemson University Fire and EMS Department, and now the medical director for the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. So she's here where she plays a critical role in shaping really the discourse and what's going on in the community. So Dr. Fabiano's dedication and contributions haven't gone unrecognized. She was honored with the prestigious title of Medical Director of the Year for South Carolina for 2 consecutive years. That's a big testament to her outstanding service and commitment to excellence. And beyond her clinical and administrative responsibilities, achievements, she has done a lot in media as well. So she co-hosts the webcast that's 911 in the 864.com. So I want to say it again, 911 in the 864.com. It's a platform that allows her to share her knowledge and insights and more stuff with the wider public. So gosh, tell me about yourself and all the stuff that I missed. And by the way, congratulations on your new role.
Thank you so much. That was really a really awesome introduction. I mean, it's so hard to top that, really. I mean, I do all of that, and I've got 2 young kids that are 4 and 7, and they keep me on my toes all the time. But I mean, otherwise, it's, that's my jam. I'm an ER doctor, so I still work in the trenches, certainly, but love EMS and love the education parts of EMS. And so I'm super excited to be part of GEMS just because it was, an opportunity that kind of presented itself. And I was like, this is pretty neat. And now it's we're able to shape even some of the stuff that's coming off from GEMS. It's great.
So I think that GEMS really holds a special place in my heart because when I was basically a kid back on the farm, I used to get this journal in the mail when I was 17 years old, and here I am, a middle-aged dude, and this is, and I, it's just an incredible honor to be able to have been published with GEMS and now to be able to spend time with you. And it's something that holds a lot of credibility in the industry because it's been around for so long, because it was a journal on the shelves and paper for so long. And when I was doing my initial research like 25 years ago for EMS related stuff, I would be in the library, in a research library, digging these paper copies off shelves. It's awesome thing to be able to take on this role. And so, how do you see the direction of gyms going now that you're there? What would you like to do, and where is it going?
Well, I mean, I just think gems in general, you bring it back to the what made it great, and I think we try to keep what made it great and keep its legacy, but also making it so easy to access, right? Like everything is done that way ever since the pandemic. Everything is virtual, everything is and people have zero patience to like wait on getting anything. So like all of the latest research, any blog questions, any sort of discussion that we want to put out there, polling people on what they're doing in their systems, and really like that knowledge sharing is so key. Like it's so key to EMS because you can be like, hey, did you have a problem with that over there, or what are you doing over there? It's just a great platform to do that. I'm actually glad, like many journals have gone to just electronic copy, and less so about I wouldn't, of course it's important environmentally, but less so in that aspect, and more so like this is instant and we can actually get feedback in fairly short amounts of time, and hey, we're really going to be able to make an impact. Or people actually say like, did you see that over there? In addition, I would say they made that announcement, and here I am like doing this selfie in the back of an ambulance where they use my picture, but I'm like, whatever, I don't care. That, I mean, I got texts and emails from people far and wide about becoming the medical director. And I thought it's really neat. Actually, what the number one question was, are you going to have to move? Are you going to leave? And I was like, no, man, I'm not moving. I'm not leaving. But so that was part of it. But it's been, I think just getting that knowledge and sharing and having a place where you can like kind of put that to paper and get things out quickly is a good thing for GEMS.
Yeah, and it makes people who may work in a more rural area or may have only worked for one EMS agency, it gives them insights into what's happening, and it makes this world a smaller place. And
Mm-hmm.
so with that comes a lot of responsibility because you are guiding the narrative. And so what do you see that's going to be happening differently that you get excited about?
I just get excited about the idea sharing. I mean, I try not to, I really don't censor people. I mean, anybody that's seen me lecture knows that I basically have no filter about most things. But certainly from that perspective, we're not telling people what can and can't be published. We don't. I think primarily when I'm reviewing articles that are going to come out, I've never said, oh, this is not good, like don't print this. Or I'm always giving them like, hey, if you say that, maybe you can make it more concise in this fashion or something like that. It's always really positive feedback. But I think that's a laborious task sometimes, and maybe other people wouldn't be as into it, but it's actually really cool to see what people are publishing from all over the place, like just different pilots that people are doing. It's really, really neat. And then you're like, I didn't even think to do that. Or have you heard any of this stuff? What do you think about this? Or, they're doing this there. Is this going to be cost effective here? And it's really, that's been a pleasure. I mean, and some people, like I said, that, you have to have a passion to do it. Like you're not an EMS physician, and you're not certainly medical control for anything because you expect to make money at it. Like that's not why you do it. You do it because you love it. So
It takes a lot of training and understanding of what research is and education to get there. So right now, I know that you've seen the battle that folks are talking about. Do we even need a degree to be a paramedic? But at the same time, there are folks from my perspective that are looking at the scene saying, gosh, we're not able to do much in the area of EMS research because we don't have folks that have prepared themselves in that direction, right? So if you don't even think about that as a career or an idea that you could take, things. So what is your perspective on that? Because I think that with you and I being in a position to promote EMS research, we are also faced with the fact that there are people who have biases about what education they should have to even be in the field. And then of course we recognize that we have a shortage of paramedics right now. So, tell me about your perspective on that.
yeah, I mean, it's a tough area because you're fighting exactly what you said, this lack of people that are in the field, this incredible need. When the report cards, and I'm including South Carolina, when the report cards come out about the state, I mean, people's access to healthcare, people's follow up, the more and more we actually have, mobilized paramedics to be in the field doing stuff in people's homes is huge, especially since the pandemic. And God knows I'm the last person that wants to talk about COVID. I do not. But I mean, just to be 100% clear, that was like a game changer. Like you did vaccinations, community paramedicine kind of amped up. You decided who was going to go and who wasn't just based on how bad they look because there was just nowhere to put them. I mean, this was a huge, so you relied on people who you say can't diagnose, but like can do a very solid assessment to give you information about just, treat them in the home or do this or do that. So, I mean, you're empowering this incredible group of people, and really in many aspects they could be empowered more, right? But we're kind of constrained by various regulations and such, state by state, national, blah blah blah. Do I think that every single paramedic needs to have a degree? Probably not. I mean, there's people that don't like school, like they have no desire to do any of that. Like they want to go out and treat patients, right? And then there's people that are different, or maybe their career is evolving and they're like, I do want to get into this research, or I definitely want to be the educator. Well, then, I mean, do you go back and you enhance, you provide some sort of bridge or enhancement to get where you need to go? Yeah. I mean, that actually might be helpful. So I don't want to I don't want to, deter people who are just not like that. School's not their jam. It's just not, it just is what it is. It's just not their thing. I don't want to curtail them, or pigeonhole them to not going into this career that it is actually, and then you come into the whole thing of, spending X amount of dollars or whatever on a degree. And then you've got the student loan, and then do you get paid enough to even pay that back? And you just all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, I think you certainly you get into a thing, but I can tell you about, and you certainly more than anybody would know, all of these crazy decisions that are made by med control and everybody else at the state levels, and even at the national levels, are made based on pilots and research that we do. Like you can bring it back. And I mean, I've gone head to head with like an entire room of people about stuff. And I've been like, yeah, but look at this, showed this. This research is old school and outdated. Here's where this one went. We did this pilot. And to make actual change, you need to have it. So you need to have people that are like so invested in being like, I'm just going to land on this grenade and do this. Like, I'm just going to land on it. Because sometimes it's not fun. It's really not. Like you get into heated meetings, there's discussions, there's people that are stuck in their ways. There's other studies. For every study you find that's positive, you find a negative study. Like it's just crazy. But then you actually get to do pilot stuff where you're like, hey, look, we did this pilot and this was amazing. I mean, like we should do this. And then also you get to like actually curtail different protocols and be like, well, we did start this sepsis in the field thing here, and we thought we would have to do this, but now we can streamline it to this. And so it's actually, cost effective. And then you can actually show where you made a difference for patients. And that's kind of cool.
What I like about what GEMS does is you, of course, review their work, but it's a nice opportunity for people to fill in like that trade journal space. So you have like some aspects of the trade journal, you have aspects of independent research, and then also the news tickers that come out. And I think that what I've seen is, since I started this podcast, there are a lot of people who thought, gosh, I never even thought about that as a possibility. Like I didn't think that could be a career for me. And I think that I was one of those people who did not like school also. And for me, and also for a lot of other folks, it just takes like motivation from the excitement that can come with an end goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was trudging my own path, trying to do EMS research without having those mentors around me. But other folks don't have an easy road unless folks like you and me are there to help them. So I like that there's that nice mix, and I like that we can encourage people to do EMS research, and there are lots of different opportunities to learn in this area. And I want to say that there's a place for everybody, and so I don't think that there's a need for all of this fighting about education, but
Right.
especially if we can have some of those end goals as clear out there as possible careers. You know, I had a researcher who was on my show from Canada, and he researched CPR. He was a CPR researcher. And after I did that show with him, I had folks that wrote to me and talked to me and said, I've been a paramedic for 5 years, for 10 years. I love ACLS. This is my thing. I never imagined that I could be a researcher and make a difference and a change. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe that biology class is not as fun as the other, as another medical class to that person. But having now the idea that, wow, this is the hill that I could climb, and that's what the flag looks like
Mhm.
on the top, is really cool. And that's when all of these folks that that's what I have seen coming out of the woodwork, is folks that say, "Oh, I didn't even think about this as a possibility." So let me leave you with that note. And before I move on to the next thing, let me just ask you about your thoughts about the EMS practitioner. I'm sorry, the paramedic practitioner thought, where there might someday be a mid-level role similar to a nurse practitioner or a PA. Do you see that in our future? What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I feel like a lot of things would have to happen for that. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I feel like it someday may move towards that, just simply because the population is what it is, that we need all the help we can get out there. Um, but I think a lot of things would have to come into play. Like, they would have to be compensated appropriately. Somebody would have to pay for their education. I mean, you can't expect somebody to go and be educated and do this practitioner role and do all the licensing and God knows the credentialing and all that kind of stuff, and not reimburse them appropriately, right? And not like somehow pay for their school or something. There'd have to be a buy-in. But I don't discount that it's coming. Like, I
Well,
don't, and I don't,
so let me throw this idea out there, just like me on the fly thinking, because so if a lot of folks are talking about raising the standard of education for paramedics to a bachelor's degree level. So
right,
if if we do that, there are lots of clinical components that we could instill in there. And from my viewpoint as a paramedic, there's only so much that you can do on the field. You're not going to crack someone's chest open. So it
sure,
doesn't matter at some point, it doesn't matter what level, it
right,
doesn't matter what level of physician you have out there, even on the scene. There's only so much that can be done. So it's a
right,
matter of like utilizing resources, appropriately
right.
sometimes. So what if this campaign, instead of focusing on paramedic practitioner, what if we could focus on the campaign of paramedic bachelor's degree, and then
Sure,
allow those folks to have more advanced decision making,
sure,
in the field? So I feel like that we're talking about, hey, let's make everybody doctors, but we don't even
right.
have the middle field.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I think, if you did that and you got to the level of having this, bachelor's degree, then it certainly, you certainly should be, delineated from the rest of the group, right? And then also, right, you would have to be able to do more, which, would have to be embraced by the rest of society, which, I mean, like I said, we depended on paramedics and EMTs alike, when when we didn't have access to care. So,
Well, some of this is determined by the physician medical directors, right?
right.
And what can happen. And so I'm curious, what do you think the consensus view of all of this is for those folks?
I think you're gonna get a mixed bag. I would, consider myself more of a progressive medical control. So I'm more apt to, fight the fight on things that, people don't, necessarily want to give people control over, and come with the adequate, research. I'm also, fairly progressive in all my protocols, but you're going to get somebody that's not necessarily as progressive, or maybe didn't stay informed of certain stuff. And so they don't want to change. Right. And so they're not going to, and you have to really know the group that you're with. Right. Like, so, I mean, there's, the flight crews that I'm over are amazing clinicians, are critically care trained. I mean, they're just amazing, bar none. It having very progressive protocols for them, I don't think twice about, right? I mean, because they're just, they're solid. Can everybody say that they're over an agency that's pretty solid like that? No. I mean, is everybody going to have the buy-in to do all that? No. So, I mean, I think you'll get a mixed bag of people, but I think as younger, medical directors come into play, that have been boots on the ground. We have a ton of physicians that are EMS trained that started in EMS, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and they get it. They get it. And so those people, I think, will be more progressive as well. So,
One of the things that's happened in my career is that I've seen how, we have had all this life with everybody gets backboarded on these really uncomfortable backboard situations. And now we have paramedics that, and a lot of protocols are clearing C-spine in the field. And I just want to say that alone, just that one thing has
huge.
made a dramatic difference, right? Because now I know how to assess a patient. I know what, all the pros and cons. And before I was more like, oh, your head hurts, backboard. So,
Right, right. Oh, yeah,
so
yeah,
it's that kind of thing that, like, just allowing
right.
the strings to uh, be loosened just enough so that the situation can work out. I think that same kind of thinking can move to lots of other situations. And I'm a paramedic in Texas, and I will say that I know that the protocols statewide are pretty much wide open to the medical directors. So transporting blood, not talking to any kind of medical resource unless it's a dire emergency. As a
Right.
medic in Texas, I've only talked to a physician medical director once in 15 years on a scene, and that was because I had an LVAD patient that was coding. So it was like, these things are just are really rare. So yeah, so to anybody who had any help with any any consideration with C-spine clearing, that made a difference. So there are other
Right.
things like that I see as exciting. I want to talk about some of the stuff that's been happening just in the industry lately, because there have been death cases that involve the use of restraint with patients, and
Mm.
all of this has been in the mind of providers lately, because we we as paramedics are thinking, gosh, how do we protect ourselves during these extreme cases where we have a patient that's trying to hurt themselves or is trying to hurt someone else? And from my perspective, we are inappropriately as paramedics put into situations where we're under extreme pressure to sedate someone or to restrain someone. And what happens is that we have a person that's literally ready to hurt themselves or somewhere else, and doing it, and the police pushing every bit of this onto EMS. Oh, this is a medical issue. This is psych. You do this, you handle that, and so it all gets dumped onto the paramedic. And so, we have a responsibility to take care of this person. And there's been some extreme situations that I've been in my career that I wish I hadn't have been in. And I recognize that there's just no way. I had to sedate this person. I had to, have this person cuffed, and they had to be on their chest. I don't
Mhm.
know how else to do this. I have a police officer with me. I have two crew members with me. We're doing the best that we can. So there's these two
Mhm.
cases especially, and Elijah McCain and Earl Moore. These
Mhm.
two deaths. One was in Illinois, and I'm not sure where the Elijah McCain death was, but these deaths are really tragic. And EMS covered that the Earl Moore Jr. death in February 2022. There was an article that Jim's did about an EMT and a paramedic in Illinois that were charged with murder for improper restraint. And I I saw the video footage from some of the body cam, and I I recognized that a lot of what I saw seemed cold and impersonal. This work, to manage the patient, but at the same time, I saw a situation where a female provider was trying to be very strong, right, and be in control of a wild and crazy man. And to do that, it takes a certain demeanor, and so some of those things may come across, wrong to a jury, and she and the EMT may be in prison. And Elijah McCain, the death case, was covered in GEMS in January, just this year, 2024. The article was called EMS Under Scrutiny, and that case presented this confluence of medical practice, legal boundaries, and this deeply human aspect of EMS, and the decision to prosecute the paramedics after that case also stands as a focal point. So I guess all this to say that as paramedics, there are some of us who are legitimately scared. You know, I had a doctor who um, asked me if I had. We were talking about a patient, and he asked me if I had Versed, and I knew it was a case that like there was like a 5% chance I would even need Versed, but I just looked at him and he saw my facial expression, and I looked at him and I was like, I didn't even express in words what all I was thinking at that moment, but what I was thinking was, you know, I don't want to sedate somebody. I don't want to do it, you know, because um, I'm scared. I know other people are, and so I wanted to see what your thoughts are. What is this? What is this going to end up looking like, and what can be done, and how do we, as providers, handle these situations? Because some people die when they get sedated.
Yeah. I so a lots to unpack there, of course,
Yeah.
but the deaths of these patients certainly not anybody's goal, obviously, and definitely tragic, no doubt, and different circumstances behind each one, like an overdose amount of the a completely um, overestimation of somebody's weight, and you factor in a bunch of things, the fighting, which is, this excited delirium, which nobody wants to put a word on. And then, you stop there's an influx of catecholamines and then they die, that happens regardless if they're sedated, that can happen. And then you get somebody that's been sedated and fighting the police for quite some time and, face down, and that doesn't ever work out. Right. So, yeah, I mean, EMS in particular are on the front lines. So many cases where EMS brings somebody in that's been checked out by the police and there's all kinds of weapons and stuff on them anyway. I mean, and they're lucky. The EMS is lucky that something didn't happen, right? I mean, it's always that way. There's, oh God, there's always, we're lucky it didn't happen. Tons and tons and tons and tons of assault on EMS providers, assault on ER physicians and nurses continually,
Yep.
where people likely don't get prosecuted, right? Because A,
Mhm.
nobody wants the time to do that, but B, it's like it's okay to be written off, right? As they were, high on drugs, or they were this, or they were
Mhm.
that, or having a psychotic break. And I mean, that could be true, but the accountability is certainly not there either, which makes this terrible situation where we're like, okay, we really need you to help us with this patient, but not really, right? So,
Mhm.
um, so noted that people can die from sedation, and they can die from sedation in the emergency room and in the hospital too, right? I mean, so that's the first point. Having things, I often we changed the way we reported ketamine out in our state. So involved process, but it is what it is. And that process came about because, there was a whole bunch of things. Like, they wanted every single person had to call med control before they gave ketamine. I'm like, do you understand? Like, in the discussions, in these things, I was like, do you have any idea what you're asking a paramedic to do in a very dangerous situation? You want that to pick up a phone and call you or the hospital and ring, ring, ring and I mean, like, that's like, we're dealing with somebody that's out of control, right? So knowing the best time to use it, not using it inappropriately, meaning like somebody that's just a little anxious, like they don't need an IM slug of ketamine or Versed, they don't need that. Being appropriate with it, obviously placing them on end titles, is the best thing for monitoring. And are you going to sedate somebody with an appropriate medicine and still have to like intubate them? Yeah, that's going to happen, right? It is what it is. You could give somebody medication for pain and overshoot, or medication for a seizure and overshoot and have to intubate them. I mean, it happens. You can't predict somebody's metabolism or anything like that. You just kind of have to embrace that can happen. And it is what it is. And it's a buy-in, right? And so I've told people that in my lectures. Like, do I think, that every single paramedic and EMT and whoever else is involved in all these cases that are brought to the public light made the best decision making? No, that's of course not. But it's a buy-in, just like we tell paramedics, hey, you're going to be able to call the STEMI, or hey, you can set off the stroke alert, or hey, you can do this. Well, hey, you've got to make this decision because you're standing there,
Right.
and we're gonna treat them regardless. I tell people that, like, don't give them a tisk tisk tisk. Now we have to intubate them because you gave them ketamine, right? Like, too bad. I mean, in a way, the ER needs to embrace that a little bit, right? The other thing that, and I'm certain it's everywhere, there's not much of a team approach, between law enforcement and EMS a lot, right? It's the us versus them. Well, this is you, this is you, this is you, this is you. You have to protect yourself and communicate with them. Law enforcement can't dictate you give anybody a medication. Like it's not their license and they don't know anything about those things, right? We need them for safety. So maybe a more of a collaborative effort where we're like, dude, you're riding in with us and let's work on this first. And, people to speak up, right? I mean, no one wants somebody to lay prone for 20 minutes. Like that's not going to work out. It doesn't matter what you're doing. So I mean, it's a collaborative effort.
I appreciate your time and I look forward to, now that I have a face that goes with your name, I'll be able to read gems and know exactly who you are, and so will my audience. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thank you so much. This was fun. I appreciate it.
Good deal. Take care. I want to also invite you to check out my latest book I co-authored with Four Arrows, who has 2 doctorates and is an expert on indigenous scholarship and hypnosis. So I just want to invite you to check it out because we introduce a method for communicating with patients on the scene of an emergency that takes advantage of some of the properties found in hypnosis. This book works to change the way we approach and interact with any kind of emergency patient in acute distress because it's going to help you be a better practitioner and use communication as a healing tool. Right now, there's just not a lot of training in how to talk to your patient. And if you've been stuck with a patient for any period of time and you need to have a conversation, it's awesome to be able to have a healing conversation. This book is called Hypnotic Communication in Emergency Medical Settings for Life-Saving and Therapeutic Outcomes. You can follow the link below to find it, or you can find it literally almost anywhere you type in the name or my name. I had a friend that mailed me a book and wanted an autograph. Don't mail me a bunch of books. Just let me know that you want an autograph for the book and I'll be happy to send you over a sticker. I have some stickers made that are pretty awesome that I'll send you that you could put in the cover.
Hi, I'm Will Chapleau from the International Pre-Hospital Medicine Institute. You might know about us because of the literature reviews that we post every month free for your review on our website at iphmi.com and also published through GEMS Online magazine every month. We've been doing them for 5 years, so now we've accumulated over 240 literature reviews over the past 5 years. And we've gotten feedback from our audience that said they'd like to have these things as desk references, so they'd had a rapid reference. Well, we've done it. And there are now 5 volumes of these books, one for each year that we've been publishing them. This is the latest version, volume 5. And as I said, in each of these, there's at least 48 literature reviews. They're all cataloged in the beginning of the book, so you can see what the topic area is, what pages those reviews are on, and how you can find them quickly. And again, these are a great reference, whether you're putting a lecture together, working on a paper, studying, whatever it is. This gives you the depth of field of the science that dictates what we do in the field or what we should be doing in the field or why we've changed the way we do things in the field. In any event, as with all of our publications, we've priced these because we want you to be able to have this book. It's only $4.99 in the hard copy here, and all 5 of them are available at that price. But you can also get them as ebooks, and they're available as ebooks from Amazon, from Apple, from Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your ebooks for the price of $2.99. So again, we don't do this with an aim towards getting wealthy. We do these because we want you guys to be able to have these materials. Relevant information, affordable information, and an access so you can get to it. So you want the hard copies, go on Amazon, $4.99. Go to your ebook store and you get it for $2.99. If you're in the business, this is the kind of material you want to have around to settle those firehouse arguments or to help you put your materials together. Thanks again. See you all soon. Thanks.
The other thing before we close that I want to share is that I'm doing a research project related to first responders who live in the United States. And I could really use your help if you don't mind being interviewed over a video call. So go to my website, fill out the form that's at professorbram.com, professorbram.com. And thank you again for listening. I look forward to sharing more insights with you in this next episode. If you enjoy EMS research, please tell your friends, like, share, and subscribe to help others get the message. And then stay tuned for the credits at the end so you can see the research articles that we talked about in today's episode.